Recording from Emory University, this is the Virulent Vortex, a podcast in which we discuss infectious diseases from molecules, pathogens to populations, pandemics, and everything in between. My name is Jaap de Rode. I'm a biology professor here at Emory University, and today with me is
David Jimenez Vallejo. I am a fourth-year PhD student in the Population Biology, Ecology, and Evolution program, and I am part of the Prokopec lab out in the Department of Environmental Science.
Well, thanks so much for being here on the show, and so I'd like to talk about your research, and my understanding is you study mosquitoes. So tell us why mosquitoes.
Sure. So I work with the dengue vector. That's Aedes aegypti. They transmit dengue, but they also transmit some other things. And they're important because they've evolved to be pretty much very close to humans. They're an urban species now. And that's important because they transmit disease. And so a lot of people get sick during like wet seasons.
So you mentioned Aedes aegypti. So this is one of many different mosquito species. And so this is a species. So remind us, does this occur in the United States or is this in different places?
It occurs mainly in tropical and subtropical areas. Like the Yucatan Peninsula, for example, or like the tropics in South America, the tropics in Africa, the tropics in Asia. It's mainly there, but given climate change, we are seeing that the range is expanding. I don't believe that they're in the United States just yet, but it's likely that they will eventually make it up here.
So when we have mosquito season here in Atlanta, which is almost the whole year, we have different, that's Aedes albopictus and Sulex mosquito. Right. So different species. Yeah. Okay. So, and you mentioned dengue and other diseases such as yellow fever, right? Yeah.
Zika and chikungunya are the other main ones that are transmitted by Aedes aegypti.
Yeah. So a lot of infectious diseases that actually are really dangerous to people.
Exactly. Yes. And they primarily bite humans. So they don't really care to bite anything else. And so that's why they're particularly important for us.
And that's what you said earlier. They're really adapted to humans. They're an urban species. So,
that's right.
So would you say that humans have created the conditions that make these mosquitoes thrive?
Yes, that would be very good to say, particularly so the main thing that humans have provided them are the breeding sites. And so anything from like a tire to like a pot for a plant will serve as a breeding site for mosquitoes, and anything that will hold water. And humans are particularly good at disposing of things that can hold water.
Yeah. Like having a tire is almost impossible to get the water out.
Exactly.
And they only need a tiny little bit of water to lay their eggs, and then they get larvae and pupae and you get the new mosquito.
That's right.
Okay. So you mentioned Yucatan earlier. So I know your research also happens in Mexico.
That's right.
And so tell us about what you do and why you do it.
So I did a couple of field seasons out in Mérida in Yucatan. And we worked hand in hand with the Autonomous University of Yucatan. They have a particular lab field where they have experimental huts. And then what I do essentially is I take those mosquitoes and I release them in an experimental hut. And I record their flight and I record where they're resting.
Okay. So you're basically looking at what mosquitoes do. So most of us know they fly and they bite, but you just mentioned resting. And so you have huts and then you're looking at where they're resting. And so this is basically as a model to understand where they would normally rest in people's houses.
Yeah, it's a very initial way of looking at it, because the experimental hut, obviously we can't compare it to a house, but it gives us a solid idea of what mosquitoes are doing under field conditions.
Okay. And why does it matter that we know where they rest?
Right.
Because I just care that they bite me.
It's actually very interesting because you've probably recognized yourself that when you get bit, you likely get bit by the ankles and like at lower parts of your body. And so there's been previous studies from our group and from other groups that show that particularly Aedes aegypti, you're 14 times more likely to find them resting low than high, which is very interesting because we don't really know why that preference exists, but it's been observed multiple times. And so where my research looks to do is to come in and say, okay, why is there such a higher chance of them being down there? Is it something related to microclimate? Is it something related to the way that mosquitoes reserve energy? Is it a matter of what colors are at low heights and may be serving as attractants to them for shelter. There's a variety of different things that have been proposed that are driving resting preferences, but it hasn't been strongly quantitatively assessed. Yep.
So you're thinking about having a wall and you find more of them. So you're seeing, do more of them land and sit there resting at the bottom parts rather than up there.
That's right.
And so that sounds like some very basic biology that we should already know, no?
It's very basic, but no one seems to have gone into it. And because it's particularly hard to deal with mosquito because they're small and they fly, and it's kind of hard to record them if you're using cameras. And so it's particularly challenging to observe behavioral outcomes from this kind of vector. But yeah, it's very basic biology that I'm interested in.
So you have your hut, you're looking at mosquito behavior. What kind of tools do you use? You said earlier they're small, so it's hard to just see where they're going. So how do you do this?
Yeah, so we have a combination of things. In order to record their flight, we use this new machine that's been created by this company called Photonic Century. And they're actually funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And pretty much what this machine is, it's a stereoscopic set of cameras. So you have two cameras that are lined up with LED lights. And these LED lights will emit infrared light. And that infrared light will bounce off of a retroreflective screen that you set up across from it. And so now you have this active region of recording where anything that is in that region or flying within that region will be producing a silhouette on the retroreflective screen. And so then the cameras will take pictures very fast, every like 10 milliseconds. And so using AI and some computer science algorithms, the machine is then able to look at how many shadows are in the reflective screen, and then it's able to reconstruct the paths of the mosquitoes. And so we use that to record their flight and then be able to get reconstructed paths of all occurrences of flight within the hut. And that's for flight. And then coupled with sticky traps that we've made ourselves for us to then be able to measure resting height. And so these traps are 2 feet tall, which is how tall the hut is. And we have 4 of them spread across within the hut. And we have different colors in order to account for different color attraction and contrast attraction. And so there was 4 different color treatments that were involved with those traps. But yeah, they're continuous in height, and that allows us to continuously measure height.
Mm-hmm. I see. So you're going in a hut and then you just release mosquitoes and then you track where they fly and then you track where they land.
That's right.
And so sounds pretty tricky. Do you ever get bitten yourself doing this?
Oh, yes. I did get bit. So the way that we did it is we had males sampled on their own and then females sampled on their own. And we had 2 groups of females. We had females that were unfed without blood and then females that were blood fed. And the ones that would bite me when I would be in there were the ones that were unfed. Because we would release it. Yeah, they were hungry and there were 100 of them in there. And not all of them would get stuck. And so they would try and get and bite me and stuff. So that definitely happened.
So it's basic behavioral biology, but it has applications too.
Right, exactly. Because from that observation that they rest lower, there's been a modification to the application of insecticides in urban areas. And so rather than spraying the entire wall and the ceiling and as much space as you can cover inside, they're only now applying it like 1.5 meters and below, which is kind of maximizing. Okay, if they're 14 times more likely to be down here, then we should really target that. And so that has kind of evolved into targeted indoor residual spraying.
So what I imagine is you have a town or a city, a lot of houses, and a truck comes by and people come in and just spray insecticides. And you're saying rather than just like spraying it all over the place, you can do more targeted, and that is beneficial because there's less insecticides. Right. So there's less exposure to the people that live there, but also it's cheaper.
Yeah. So it's cheaper. It's easier to apply. The amount of houses you can spray in one day exponentially increases in compared to having to spray everything. Like you said, reduce exposure, not just humans, but also other pollinators, important pollinators in the ecosystem. And yeah, reduces down costs. And so for these subtropical and tropical areas that are sometimes found in low and middle income countries, it's very beneficial to them to be able to maximize the use of insecticides that they're able to get.
And so then you mentioned the different color traps as well. So can you imagine a situation where not only can you say just spray at this height, but also paint your colors red or black or blue?
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're heading towards. So that would be the ultimate goal, would be to come up with something that we could provide to households that would be cheap, but at the same time would allow them to hone in more on this, like, okay, what is driving their resting? So if we know they're resting just innately lower, what maximizes that even more? So if we put darker colors down low, will that make it even better? Yeah.
That's great. So from simple biology to potentially simple ways to control these mosquitoes.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
I appreciate it.